Good afternoon, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Stephanie, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Cruzen,
Here.
Comptroller Green,
Here.
President Reed.
Here.
Great, thank
All
you.
present.
Items presented for the first time. Number 1, 21.055, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of contracts and leases for various city departments as listed on Exhibit A. Number 2, 21.056, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of intra-departmental and interdepartmental transfers from various city departments as listed on Exhibit B. Number 3, 21.057, request from the Comptroller's Office for approval of transfers between projects for capital improvement funds listed on Exhibit C. Number 4, 21.058, request from the Comptroller's Office through the Board of Election Commissioners for approval to transfer $60,000 from the CARE Pandemic 2020 contingency appropriated in ordinance number 71182 to the Board of Election Commissioners, Department 334, utilizing funding Fund 1410 to allow for the rental and operation of 4 satellite offices to process in-person absentee ballots in anticipation of the large number of absentee ballots expected during March 2021 primary election process due to COVID-19. Number 5, 21.059, request from the Mayor's Office through the CDA for approval to transfer $365,000 from CDA 1410-1422000-5959000 to 1410-120-2020 CARE Pandemic 2020 contingency per ordinance number 71182 to purchase and install air purification units and components that will improve the air quality in multiple city buildings. Number 6, request from the Mayor's Office for approval to transfer $200,000 from Department of Human Services 1410-800-201-5659582 to 1410-120-2020 CARE Pandemic 2020 contingency per ordinance number 71182 for additional funding to purchase and install air purification units and components that will improve the air quality in multiple city buildings. Number 7, 21.061, request from the Mayor's Office for permission to reallocate funding established for CARES Act as needed to meet the city's financial obligations with respect to COVID-19 financial obligations approved by ordinance number 71-182 and the identified funding priorities and funding sources. These funds will be expended within the timeframe allowed in the CARES Act legislation and will come from other unspent and unencumbered appropriations established for CARES Act funding. Mayor's Office will work closely with the Comptroller's Office to ensure compliance and availability of funds. Number 8, 21.062, request from the Mayor's Office, Director of Operations, and the Department of Health for approval to transfer $75,000 from the Department of Health 1410-700-2000-5659000 to CARES Act Pandemic 2020 PPE 1410-120-2020 per ordinance number 71182 to purchase COVID-19 rapid saliva tests for the police and fire departments. Number 9, 21.063, request from the Director of Airports for approval of Board Bill 168. Excuse me. This ordinance authorizes the assignment and assumption of interest in lease agreement AL 230 and the consent of the City of St. Louis between Spire CNG Inc. and Spire Missouri Inc. Number 10, 21.064, request from the Director of Airports for approval of Board Bill 171. This ordinance authorizes an air service incentive program for FY 2021 through FY 2023, not to exceed $2.4 million. Number 11, 21.065, request from the Director of Airports for approval of Board Bill number 172. This ordinance authorizes funding in part the Air Service Incentive Program for FY 2021 through FY 2023 by transferring $1 million from the Airport Development Fund to the Airport Contingency Fund. Number 12, 21.066, request from the Department of Health for approval to add a Health Services Manager 2 / Quality Improvement Manager position to their table of organization. That's the extent of the agenda.
I move for adoption of items 1 through 12 as printed.
Second.
I'd like to separate out item 2 and item 4, if I could, please.
Okay, I would amend that motion to move to adopt items 1, 3, and then 5 through 12.
I remove my first, second, and second your amended motion.
Great. Is there any discussion of items 1, 3, 5 through 12? Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor, I guess we should do a roll call since we're on Zoom, of items 1, 3, and 5 through 12. Stephanie, you want to call the roll, please?
Mayor Cruzen,
Aye.
Comptroller Green,
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Great, those passed unanimously. Okay. Mr.
Madam Mayor,
President,
before
could
we
have
go to the, may I ask a question? While I had no discussion on the items that we just passed, I do have a question, and it's concerning the CARES Act spending. I want to be reminded of the portal that gives a breakdown of the CARES Act spending and any remaining balances. Can you help remind me of the portal? That is that on a website that is the mayor's website or the health department website? I do know we have one. I just need to be reminded.
Madam Comptroller, it's on the Health Department website. I think it's called Transparency Portal or some such words as that. It's on there. And of course, my office, Dr. Eccles, and Beverly in your office all work hard to try to make that as current as possible. Things are moving quickly, but it's on the Health Department website.
Thank you. And also an additional question, were there additional funds coming from the state regarding any of the CARES Act or other kinds of additional funding that we can expect? Or are we waiting approval for from the state or federal government, if you have any information on that?
Well, so for state and federal government, we have not gotten any direct additional funding from the state. The state did, the governor had a half a dozen or so initiatives that were recently passed in a special session. And so we may indirectly get some of those funds, but we don't have any at this point in time. And then with regard to the federal, so, you know, that has been a little up in the air for the last month or more. And just today, and I don't know if it's finally passed yet, my latest update was about 2 hours ago. It looks like there may be a federal stimulus package that is getting passed. It's unclear at this time whether there will be any direct funding to cities or states, to local governments. Latest update is it looked like there may not have been, but you know, this is going back and forth and back and forth, and we just have to wait to see what really finally comes out of Congress and is signed by the president. So we're anticipating something very soon, but we don't have it yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if I could have a motion on number 2 and number 4, one or the other or both, and then I would I have a comment about those two.
Move for adoption of item number 2.
second.
Or you want, unless you want me to do both.
That's fine. Item number 2 is fine. Did you second that, Madam Comptroller?
I did.
Okay, great. So what I wanted to point out here is that in item number 2, the request for transfer of funds, if you look at the supporting documentation here, the 5th line down, there's a transfer of $75,000. It's actually 3 numbers, 45,000, 3,000, 26,000, about $75,000 to go from the city courts to the election board. And the purpose of that, my office have been working with Ben Borgmeyer and the Election Commission in order to do a number of things. One, to have the remote absentee voting locations, which the election board wanted to have 3 of those in addition to the one, of course, that they have downtown always. So that'd be 4 in total. But they also want to do some communication to voters about the change in the election procedure as a result of Proposition D for the March and the April election. So we were concerned, this goes to item number 4, Madam Comptroller, we certainly agree that they need some money. We were concerned that it might be a problem with the CARES Act money. So we asked Paul Payne to find the $75,000. I sent an email to him back on the 7th of December that just said, find the money. And you know, it doesn't always work like that, but Paul Payne did find these 3 line items so that we can transfer 75,000 over to the election board so that they can use it for the elections in March and April. We were concerned about the CARES Act money and when we'd be able to spend it and all that kind of thing. So that's why we did the transfer in that way. And so if we're all in agreement on those things, and I believe we are, then, you know, I would hope that we would go ahead and pass item number 2.
I definitely want us to pass item number 2. And if in fact you're saying you're replacing the CARES Act money, which is item number 4, with the $10 in item number 2, Madam Mayor, I had been advised by my staff that you were possibly not thinking that the CARES dollars would be spent by the deadline. What I'm hearing is the deadline is 12/31 for it to actually be transferred or a check cut to those library locations by 12/31. I'm just asking because I know that the absentee voting begins January the 20th. So I would think that we would want to secure those locations within, or 30 days, which of course the 31 gets us there.
Yes.
And I also didn't want to have any remaining balances in CARES Act, and if this, in fact, can be done. That's the only reason that I wanted to place item 4 on, is so that we could maximize our use of CARES dollars and not have any remaining balances. And, in this time of the pandemic, when our tax dollars are lower, if we had those dollars available, CARES Act would certainly be the first ones to use. But I would be glad to approve the transfer, remove item 4 if that is your intent, so that we can move forward. But item 4, I thought, could possibly just be a placeholder so that the option would be available between now and 12/31. So I'm in agreement with whatever you would want to decide on today.
Thank you for that. Well, I absolutely appreciate your thinking on this. We will spend all the CARES Act money. As you know, this is a day-to-day thing as we figure out what's been spent and what hasn't. So we don't intend to leave any money on the table. And there has been some uncertainty about exactly when the CARES Act money had to be spent and for what, whether or not it could be allocated now for a future service. It looked like and looks like that is a bit iffy. And so this election, the absentee voting places, in-person absentee voting places, and the communication, I think is so important to make sure we've got the funding for that, that I don't want any uncertainty having to do with CARES Act. So that was the reason that we went about it in a little different way. So if you're in agreement with that, I think, you know, this is a sure thing. And we'll spend all the CARES Act money. So if you are in agreement and there's a motion, a second on the table to pass item number 2, then if there's no further discussion, could we have a vote on item number 2? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, great. So item number 2 passed. And item number 4, I believe, is not needed since we allocated to the same purpose in item number 2. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
I'm looking at my staff, so they're okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's okay with that. All right.
Then
You know,
I
the
would,
CARES Act,
I would
fast
make a
moving.
motion that we would remove item 4 from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of removing item number 4 from the agenda, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, that concludes items number 1 through 12. And then the other thing that we have on the agenda is an update on MSI, which will talk a little bit about that. I do have, Rich Bradley's kind of on standby in case we need him. And Dale was going to be here today, but he had a family doctor's situation that he really couldn't get out of. So if there's something that I can't answer or Rich can't answer, we'll get Dale back at another point in time. So let me kind of tell you where we are right now. Today, there are about 800 people being detained, 793 to be exact. 693 of them are at CJC and 100 are at MSI. The capacity at MSI is 436. It used to be 1168. I know you all remember that. But about 18 months ago, sometime in the middle of 2019, we closed the dorm at MSI, and that reduced the capacity by 800 people. You know, as recently as 6 or 7 years ago, virtually all 1,168 beds that were in place at MSI at that time were full. So now we're down to 100. That's good. We've been working with the courts on this. We've established the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, which has been working with everybody in the justice system, whether it's prosecutors, defense attorneys, judges, and those are all the folks that decide who goes into our jail. We don't actually get, none of us on this call are deciding any of that. But what we are charged with is housing safely and in good conditions anyone who is being detained. So the 100, I guess it was, all right, let me grab something off my desk. Sorry, I didn't bring these dates over here. Back in July 17th, the Board of Aldermen unanimously passed Board Bill 92, which called for the closure of MSI by the end of the year. I signed it about a week later, and it became ordinance number 71217. And we've been working towards that ever since. Now, here we are in the midst of COVID, still in the midst of COVID. And we certainly don't want to have our jails, either one of them, become a nexus for that. I'm going to back up a little bit and say that back a year ago, more than a year ago, we embarked on, through Rich Bradley's office, we embarked on a study to assess, this was even before the Board of Aldermen's ordinance, we embarked on a study to assess jail space, for detainees. Prior to that, and I know you both will remember this, the city spent $7 or $8 million at MSI, putting in air conditioning. When I came here 4 years ago, it wasn't air conditioned at all. We first put in some temporary air conditioning and now put in some air conditioning, new surveillance, new locks that they needed, new showers and bathrooms. So this $7 or $8 million to improve MSI. That's all been done over the last 2-3 years. Then we embarked on a study about a year ago. We started talking about a study in order to assess what kind of jail situation do we need. And so we engaged Ross and Berrezzini, which is a consultant, to do a justice planning and feasibility study. They looked at several options, saying that we still have at least 100 people here. That's what we have today in MSI. And if you look back over the last couple of years, we normally had 200 or 300 people there. It's hard to predict the future, but we thought we've got to have capacity somewhere if we're going to close MSI. So we did a study, and several options were considered. One was adding on to the Justice Center. The one that seemed to be the most viable was using the old police department building over here at 12th and Clark. Is that Clark or Spruce? And converting that into detainee space, because the goal here is to be able to provide good programming. And if Dale were here, he could speak to this better, but good programming, good services, social services to help folks while they're there, so that when they are released, they are better able to get on their feet. So sort of scrunching everyone into CJC was just not an option. And that's why we embarked on this study. And what I would say is that if, and I think this would be great, I'm sure the consultant would be happy to brief you, Mr. President, or Madam Comptroller on the results of that study. It's a very expensive proposition to create additional detainee space. The study actually said it could be 70 million, it could be 90 million. That's a big deal. And, frankly, a year ago, that seemed, more possible than it seems today when we're in the midst of COVID. But the long and the short of it is we are continuing to work to reduce the number of people at MSI. We have gone so far, you all know, because we talked about this last time, that Dale had reached out to a number of different counties to see if they had capacity to take some of our detainees. I'm looking for, he reached out to the bordering counties that we have right around here: St. Clair, St. Louis County, St. Charles County, Franklin, Jefferson. There were 7 or 8 different counties. And he's now sent them a letter asking them for a specific response. The initial reach out was, I think it was via email. And of course, he knows some of the folks. They are in a group together to talk about best practices and that sort of thing. He is in conversations with a jail that's in Kentucky. It's a long ways away. I think it's about 4 hours or something. But so he's in some conversations about the possibility of contracting for some space in Kentucky. It's not ideal because it's so far, but it was good in some other ways. So anyway, I guess the long and the short of this update is that we have a lot of things in the works. But right now we have 100 detainees that are at MSI, and we are not going to overcrowd CJC and put people on the floor on mattresses in order to close MSI in 10 days. So that's the update. There's a lot in the works. And I think there's a lot to be, I know that, Mr. President, this was your board bill that demanded the closure by the end of the year. And I know that, Madam Comptroller, you have wanted that to happen also. That's why we're giving you this update at every E&A meeting. But between now and December 31st, we're just not going to double bunk or triple bunk people into CJC and risk the spread of COVID and all kinds of other things that happen in crowded conditions. But we are committed to maintaining as few number of jail spaces as we can, given that we have to be prepared to take folks that are sent to us by the courts. So I'll leave it at that, and would welcome you guys if you want to meet with the consultant who did the feasibility study. This study was started early in the year. It was completed, I think it was in June is when I was briefed on it. So. That's really all I have on that update. Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks for that.
I appreciate your update, and I think it would be most appropriate to have the study that was done in terms of the space shared with the rest of E&A, as well as I guess the other city officials who have a stake in this matter. I did mention to the president of the board last month when there was an update, and I believe, Madam Mayor, that update was given by the president of the board at the time as to whether or not the December 31st date was still feasible, and he, of course, shared that it was. So your update today, Madam Mayor, where we're less than 15 days or about 15 days towards the end of that month, which is the deadline of 12/31, you're very certain and assured that we will not meet that deadline. So it was the board bill, the ordinance that was voted on unanimous actually did become just a gesture on behalf of what was put before the Board of Aldermen. So that is what we have here. And I don't know what the next steps are, Madam Mayor, in terms of going a step closer to closing MSI, but I think we need to give definition to that if in fact the ordinance had any meaning at all. But as it stands now, I would declare that there was no meaning to that board bill or that ordinance that was signed, and that the public, should feel that some of these board bills that signed in front of elections, like the mayoral election that's coming up, are just gestures. So I have to speak frankly, be transparent, and hold that ordinance accountable for what was put forth as something that we had activists and other citizens who expected the action to be taken to at least give an action plan that would lead to the closure of the workhouse, and that's what was demanded in the ordinance, and we will not have that delivered to us by that date.
Let me just say a couple of things.
I wanted to just end by saying I will continue to request an update, Madam Mayor, on the situation on a monthly basis at the E&A meetings, and thank you.
No, that's absolutely fine. I appreciate that. Let me just remind you of a couple things. Number one, it's the courts who send us people to be detained, and we really don't have much to say about that. Now, the expert here is Dale Glass. He does not think it is a good idea to send 100 people to Kentucky. I mean, I've talked with him about it. Judge Edwards has talked with him about it, but we have not abandoned that idea. And we will, if we are forced to send people to Kentucky, there's going to be transportation, or perhaps there'll be another option here. But the point here is that these detainees, they need access to their attorneys. Of course, you can do that because Zoom or whatever. Same with families. There's transportation costs. This will be an expensive proposition if we contract with another jail to hold our folks, and it'll be a logistical issue to deal with, particularly when we have 436 beds at MSI with new showers and new air conditioning and that are in pretty good shape. But you know, that is, I try to rely on the expertise of the people who really know how to run a jail, and that would be Dale Glass. Dale Glass is a very highly regarded, competent individual who has done a great job at running both MSI and CJC. I think it is not accurate to say that nothing is in the works. There's a lot in the works. There's a lot in the works. Now, we're not going to build a new jail in, you know, this year, next year, or probably for 5 years. So that's not really an option, but it is good. It's not an option for today, but it is good information to have. And so the question is, you know, if the two members of, if the president and the comptroller and the board of aldermen insist, you know, it's really up to the executive branch to make these decisions. And the reason that we have an expert in Dale is to help us make those decisions. But we will have options, and we will be able at some point in the not too distant future to begin relocating our detainees somewhere else.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And also thanks for the update. You know, I'm just so disappointed in some of the comptroller's statements saying that the Board of Aldermen, when they adopted this ordinance unanimously, that we just did it for show. I mean, I'm just beyond insulted by that. There were a lot of hard work went into getting that ordinance adopted. You, Madam Mayor, myself, nobody on this planet has control over COVID and the adjustments that have had to be made due to COVID virus. So when we were passing the ordinance, nobody knew that the surrounding facilities would say that they could not accept any additional detainees because they had to keep space so that they can isolate people on their own so that they don't have massive COVID outbreaks throughout their facilities. It's this kind of politics that's being played on big issues that continue to hurt our city. So, you know, and it does not do anything to advance the issue, right? I hear a lot of people talk, you know, the comptroller over the years has talked, oh, we need to close the workhouse. But when it came down to actually doing it and getting it done, she wanted to put a big fat piece in there for her friends to get paid for doing nothing, right? So this kind of thing absolutely has to stop. It's been a long time since I've just been this aggravated at statements made at this meeting irresponsibly. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Board of Aldermen. When we adopted that and we all voted on it, we voted on it because we know that it was important and it was a good piece, and it has advanced the discussions. We're further along now than we were before. Dale Glass hadn't put a plan together, right? All of these things that are happening now wasn't happening before. They're happening now. We've done our work and we did good work.
What was happening before is the $7-8 million worth of improvements at MSI were happening before. What was happening before is the long-term look out with Rich Bradley to actually think about how we're going to detain people 5-10 years from now. That was happening before. And I think it is, there's only 100 people there. We don't want to overcrowd CJC. We also don't want we want the judges and the prosecutor and the defense attorneys to make the best decision possible about whether or not an individual should be detained. That is not something that any of us on this call should have the ability to make. So, you know, Dale has no choice. We have no choice about who's sent to us in order to, and the courts have done a good job. There's only, you know, fewer than 900 people in jail today. I think, what was it, 863? I had the number earlier, but so there's been a lot of progress. I get it. It's always like, oh, well, if you didn't lose those last 5 pounds by your deadline, then, you know, you didn't do anything. But that's just not the case. You know, you work on these things every day and you try to get better every day. So.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I
You're
do
welcome.
want to respond to Mr. Reed. I thought his comments were uncalled for. I only stated the facts, and I believe that I was very kind to Mr. Reed at the November meeting when I did ask him point blank, was there a possibility for the closure? And he assured me. So I have only stated facts, and I reiterate that the facts are simply what they are.
Okay, the Madam Mayor,
Can I just say that
Madam
it's actually
Mayor has,
not President Reed who, I mean, with all due respect, it's actually the executive branch that has to do the work to put in place the alternatives. And so,
and they've said that as the mayor just stated, she said that Dale said to do this, he'd have to send people to Kentucky. He recommends against that.
he does.
So again,
I would
I don't
recommend against
understand.
that as well.
Okay,
No
well,
one wants to see
if you,
people who are just held over for trial to go to another state. But
Okay.
the fact remains is
If-
that MSI will not close by December the 31st.
because you, and it's
that
only
there's a
because
right
you
or
don't
wrong.
support it.
I am not saying that you haven't made progress. And so
But-
you can't not say that I'm saying that. What you can say, sir, is that the board bill ordinance passed to close by 12/31. It's just not going to happen. Am I
Because
saying
you,
that
because
you are
you're
wrong?
saying,
I'm not. No, you don't do this, Louis Reed. You listen here.
I'm
Because
listening,
that's
but go
a
ahead.
fact. And then when I say that it didn't close, that doesn't give you the right to then characterize me or what I'm saying. I just stated a fact. Now, if the fact is wrong, then you say that that is not true. But you cannot say that. So therefore, you move forward with what has happened, and the mayor has reported that. I am fine with what the mayor has reported. I am not taking away of what has been reported. So I don't expect you then to come and take away from a fact that I'm stating.
All right, so let's just be clear. The reason, let's just be clear. The reason MSI will not close is because you are against sending people to Kentucky. That's why it's not going to close. So the board bill still stands. No, because you said that you won't support it. No,
just like the song say,
Dale Glass,
the fact remains is that
you will not vote to support to close it because you don't want to send people to Kentucky.
ask that we support the board bill, which became an ordinance, which was signed. I was very kind to you.
If you don't want to support
November
MSI closing, don't support it.
Sure that we can do this.
We
I did
can,
not
we
support
can.
it.
We'll just
The
have to
vote was
send people to
2-1
Kentucky, but you
when it
don't
was
want to do that.
passed.
So
As
we're
you
not gonna be
recall,
able to
because
close.
I knew that you were supporting something that was impossible to do, but you
It's
did
still
not.
possible. You don't want to go
Oh,
along
please.
with it.
Oh,
It's
not
still
by the
possible.
1231. You did not want my input, and you don't want it now. All
It's
you
still
want is to blame
possible.
me. Have it as you like.
Okay.
Blame the comptroller because that's what
No,
you've done
you're
for
the
the
one who
six,
said
however
you
long
will
you've been
not
president of
support
the
it.
board, because there has not been a partnership with the comptroller and the president on anything, and there shall not be according to you now, because you are looking to blame someone on a failure of yours.
Look,
Judge,
Madam Comptroller, it can move forward. You're saying that you will not support sending people to Kentucky. So that means that you're not going to support MSI closing, because Dale Glass is saying right now to close it, we'll have to send people to Kentucky. You said that's
Like
not going
most
to work.
people on this call, we're both hearing about the Kentucky plan today.
All right,
Well,
but
let
you
me-
said
let
you're
me
not going to
interrupt.
support it.
And
So
now
that
you're
means-
telling me that
Let
I'm
me
supposed to
interrupt.
jump on board, and I'm just telling you, you cannot do that, Mr. President.
You're not going to
He-
play these mind games. It says
Oh
you've
my
said
God,
that you're
not
not
the
going to
mind
support it. So
All I
that's
said
just
is
what
that
it
it's not
is.
closing by the 31st, and then you
And it can happen if
everything
you
can.
support it, and it
Have
can
it as you
happen
like.
if you support sending people to Kentucky, but you're saying that you won't. So understand that the reason it's
So
not
that is your
closing,
new scheme.
that's
That's
just the
your new
facts.
scheme.
It's just the facts.
So let me say this. I am not proposing that we send people to Kentucky. I am telling you that that is an option. We are developing other options. If the executive branch deems that one of those options is a good idea, we will bring it to the Board of E&A, because no doubt it will cost money. So none of this is inexpensive. So what I'm trying to demonstrate to you is that we are doing everything we can as quickly as we can to keep detainees safe, not to have overcrowding at CJC, and to have options on the table. That's it. So when there's some options to consider that we think are acceptable, we run pretty good jails with pretty good programs. I'm sure there'll be people that'll disagree with that. But the point is, this is not just about detaining people or locking them up. This is about making sure that wherever we might contract with, that those locations are at least as good as CJC and MSI. So if we have something that we think is a good idea, we'll bring it back to this Board of E&A. I'm just demonstrating to you that we're working on a lot of different fronts on this. Thank you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
I move to adjourn this session of the Board of E&A.
It is
Merry
possible.
Christmas.
Merry
Merry-
Christmas. Okay,
Merry
I'll
Christmas.
second that. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Bye all. Thanks.
Uh,
Have a
have
good
a-
holiday.
Have a happy holiday. Bye-bye.